I'm really sorry, Mr. Collins, said Eric Cook as he handed me an envelope. Inside was a report detailing my wife's dealings with her former boss, Adam Hawkins, along with photos and a DVD. I glanced at the pictures but hadn't watched the video yet. Part of me didn't want to, but I knew I had to face it. How long has this been going on? I asked Eric, who checked his notes before answering. Based on what we've gathered, it's been happening for at least 10, maybe 12 years. It seems to have started around the time your wife was up for a promotion. That was right around the time our daughter Emma was born. I started to worry about STDs. The report showed that Adam had been involved with other married women. My wife Julia and I had been intimate since her retirement, but I started to question what kind of risks I had unknowingly faced. I scanned the report again and saw a note from Eric's assistant. It said that Julia seemed unaware of Adam's other affairs. Eric added that Adam said he never wanted to destroy your marriage. He was only after something physical. Nothing happened in my house. I was desperate for some sense of control. I asked my team to install cameras as a precaution, but there was no activity there. That's hardly comforting. Eric muttered. I might have asked for Adam Hawkins. As the pieces came together, it became clear there's more. Mr. Collins, Eric continued. Adam Hawkins's sister, Sister Evelyn, was aware of the affair and may have helped cover it up. I sighed deeply. Evelyn had always seemed decent, but now I felt betrayed. Damn, I whispered. Have you spoken to a lawyer yet? Eric asked. Not yet. I told him. Well, Jennifer Pratt is my go-to for these cases. She's top tier and despises cheaters. I can send her this report and let her know you'll be in touch. That would help. I took his card and said, I'll call her office for an appointment. Can I give you some advice? Eric asked. Sure. I replied. Let Jennifer handle it. I know it's hard, but don't do anything rash. This isn't some internet drama. This is your real life, and you've got kids to think about. I get it. After paying Eric, I left his office feeling like my entire marriage had been a lie. It hurt, but he was right. I sat in my car for about 15 minutes crying. Once I pulled myself together, I made an appointment with Jennifer Pratt for the next day. She needed financial documents, so I gathered what I could on the way home. I bought a pack of cigarettes, a habit I'd kicked back in college, and then stopped by a bar to try and clear my head. You all right? The bartender asked as I got up to leave. Unfortunately, yeah, I replied. He said with a small smile, let me guess, found out your wife's been cheating for 12 years? I told him I'd heard worse. He nodded and said my granddad used to say I was a bit of a wimp because I had no shoes. Then I met a man who had no feet. I laughed and said it gets better, handle your business, but drinking won't solve it. He agreed and said, finish your beer and head home. You won't find any answers at the bottom of that glass. I nodded, knowing he was right. As I sipped my drink, the unthinkable ran through my mind. Julia had. She'd been cheating on me for over a decade. Subtle signs that once seemed insignificant suddenly made sense. For example, after Emma, our second child, was born, I got a vasectomy, yet Julia remained on birth control when I asked her why. She said it was to regulate her cycle, which I didn't question. Then she started traveling more for work with Adam and her wardrobe became more glamorous, almost too extravagant for simple business meetings. She always said it was part of entertaining clients, but now I knew what that really meant. Adam, I used to call her when she was away. She was always in her hotel room, but sometimes I thought I heard a man's voice in the background. Her own voice would crack occasionally, but I convinced myself I was imagining things at times. I'd even catch a faint whiff of Adam's cologne on her clothes. It made me sick, but I brushed it off as a coincidence. Then there were the Fridays she continued working after retiring. She said her former company needed her expertise for one afternoon a week. Now I realized that those so-called her skills involved more than just business. One afternoon turned into 2 or 3, and soon, weekend trips became more frequent. All of this had happened over the last 4 months. Surprisingly, Julia's attitude toward me never changed. She remained affectionate and caring. I had taken on more of the child-rearing duties because of her schedule. When it became too much of a burden, so I hired Eric's firm to investigate. That's when the truth was finally confirmed. Now I had to figure out how to divide everything. If this had been some drunken mistake, I could have forgiven her. But 12 years of betrayal? That was a conscious choice. I had to face the consequences. I finished my drink, nodded, and left. I went to the bar and left when I got home. Her car was in the garage, which was a surprise. After closing the garage door, I found Julia inside the house. She immediately noticed the cigarette and beer smell on me. "You've been smoking," she said, sounding concerned. "You've been drinking. What's going on? Today's just been terrible." I told her what happened. She asked, her voice filled with worry. I was worried about what she'd said. It was vague, but it seemed genuine. She said she'd be in her office for the night, and that she wasn't much company. She offered to help, but I told her I didn't think so. I also told her I'd be out of town that weekend, leaving Friday. She was already planning a trip. "Another trip? Didn't you just go away?" I asked. "Yeah, but something came up." She explained that it was business. "You know," I replied sarcastically. "What about Emma's birthday party?" "I'm aware." Julia acknowledged, "But I can't avoid this trip. Could you explain to her why I won't be there?" "No," I refused. "You missed Eric's birthday last year, not to mention our anniversary. Can you tell our daughter why you'd rather be with Adam than celebrate her birthday here?" "James, you're being unreasonable," she said. "Julia," I stated firmly, "you supposedly retired months ago after your company was sold, but you've been gone so often that I can't help but wonder what's really going on. Is there something you'd like to tell me? Are you accusing me?" she asked defensively. "What would you think if the situation were reversed?" I questioned, and she backed down a little. "I see your point," she conceded, "but believe me, it's just business." "So you said?" I replied. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have things to take care of." "Don't interrupt me. You'll have to look after the kids tonight." I retreated into my office. I closed the door to my home office and heard Julia trying to open it. "James," she called out. "Please talk to me." "Leave me alone, Julia," I growled through gritted teeth. "I'm busy." To process a nightmare, this was the woman I had loved and supported for the last 12 years. I put on my headphones and started the DVD. Unless you've been in my shoes, you can't understand the storm of emotions that hit you when you see the woman you adored giving herself to another man willingly. I didn't care how Eric had obtained these videos. All I knew was that any love I'd once had for Julia was gone as I watched her with Adam. I told myself I'd never touch her again. I listened to their intimate conversations. "Hey, are we still on for this weekend?" Adam asked, holding her close. Julia grinned. "I can't go too long without you," she said. "What about Emma's party?" he asked. "James will handle it," she replied. "I'm sure he'll do a good job. With the kids, anyway, I'm worried he'll catch on," Adam said. "You're supposed to be retired." "I've told you, I'm not giving us up," she affirmed. "Family's important, but so are we." "I hope you're right," Adam said. "What if he finds out?" "I'll deal with it," she said confidently. "It won't be easy," he warned. "I'll manage," she replied. "He hasn't caught on in 12 years. How long will this last?" Adam asked. "As long as possible," she replied. I turned off the video I had been watching. Julia tapped on the office door. "What did you say?" she asked. My voice was low. "The kids are going to bed. Can you at least say goodnight?" "Yeah, hold on," I said, shutting down my computer and heading upstairs. Despite the turmoil in my chest, I managed to smile as I tucked Emma in. "You okay, Dad?" she asked, her little face worried. "Yeah, I'm fine. Go to sleep, sweetheart. I love you." I went downstairs to grab a coffee. Julia had kept dinner warm. "I'm not hungry," I said, heading to the patio and lighting a cigarette. Julia followed me outside, trying to kiss me. I turned my head. She kissed my cheek instead. "What's wrong?" she asked, sounding concerned. "You haven't smoked since college. We don't always get what we want," I said. "What do you mean?" she asked. I shook my head. "It's too late," I muttered. "Too late for what?" she pressed. "I'm smart," I said. "Figure it out. Just leave me alone. Maybe I can help," she offered. I was sorry for being abrupt, I said, softening my tone. "My tone of voice is getting to me. Maybe in a couple of days I'll be able to handle it." I hated lying, but lying to a liar didn't seem so bad. "Okay," she said softly, her eyes filling with tears. She went inside, and I finished 2 more cigarettes before following her in. After a shower to get rid of the smoke smell, I put on pajamas I rarely used and got into bed. Julia reached out to me, but I pushed her away. She was the first to leave. "James," she started to cry. I turned away. "Good night, Julia," I muttered. She cried softly, but I didn't care. The next morning, I got ready for work and spent some time with the kids before leaving. I didn't even acknowledge Julia. She looked at me strangely. "Don't I get a kiss anymore?" she asked. I said, "Sorry." Blowing her a kiss, I left. "A heartfelt kiss," she said. "I love you too." I replied, "Yeah, me too," and walked out the door at the office. The day was rough. I met with Jennifer Pratt later on. "Good afternoon, Mr. Collins," she said, greeting me warmly. We discussed my situation. "I want as much as I can get," I said. "I'd been the main caregiver for." I trailed off. "I'd been the main caregiver for," she said, finishing my sentence. "I'd been the main caregiver for," she continued, listing her own experiences. "I'd been the main caregiver for," she went on, listing her own experiences. "I'd been the main caregiver for," she went on, listing her own experiences. "I'd been the main caregiver for," she went on, listing her own experiences. "I'd been the main caregiver for," she went on, listing her own experiences. "I'd been the main caregiver for." She over a decade, I countered. "I'm the better parent, that's helpful," Jennifer said, nodding as she reviewed the financial data. "Your wife received a significant sum from the company's sale. Her dividends rival your salary, which works in our favor." "So does that mean no alimony?" I asked. "Or very little," Jennifer confirmed. "She's still young, so she can work. If we secure custody for you, we might even get child support." I asked her about the house. "If you get custody, you can stay in the house and she might have to pay half the mortgage. But if she gets custody, you might be on the hook for half the mortgage plus child support. Or we could sell the house and split the proceeds." I suggested that we could do that. Jennifer nodded. "In your retirement accounts and savings, those will be divided evenly. But you get to keep your 401k. "What about the house? Adam Hawkins?" I asked if I could sue him. "We mentioned him in the proceedings, but not in the state. You could try for emotional distress, but it might not go far. His sister Evelyn knew about it." I added that we can file if you'd like. Jennifer confirmed when we can file everything. "We can have it done by Friday. Is there any rush?" "I want her served late Saturday afternoon. She'll be away for the weekend with Adam." I told Jennifer, who nodded, that I'd arrange it, but there'd be an extra fee for a Saturday process server. "That's fine, go ahead," I said. "I'll get that to you right away," she replied, shaking my hand. "James," she said, reminding me not to act impulsively, before taking my retainer check and leaving my office. I felt a renewed sense of control when I arrived home. Julia's car was already in the garage, which was odd for it was a Wednesday, which was unusual for Julia, who usually stayed late at the office. As I walked in, I was greeted by the smell of pot roast. "Hey there, Julia," I said from the kitchen. "You're home early. Everything okay?" "Yeah," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Hope today's been better than yesterday." "I'm managing," Julia said, with a hint of concern in her voice. I made pot roast for dinner. She offered me some, and I said I'd have a plate. I agreed it smells great. Did you go to the office today? Yeah, just for a few hours. Homework, she replied. You're still going on this trip with Adam? I asked. When do you plan to actually retire? I'm already retired, they just need my expertise from time to time. I said. You're practically there with all the hours you're putting in. She asked. What do you mean? I replied. With all the time you spend working, it's like you're on their payroll again. She asked. Why do you say that? I answered. I'm just making more money now with my retirement. She's always been an amazing cook, so I knew I'd miss that. After dinner, I spent some time with the kids before heading back to my office. I locked the door behind me a few minutes later. Julia knocked. Are you planning to stay there tonight? She asked. Yeah, I still have a lot to do and I'm not feeling well. I'll sleep on the futon to avoid getting you sick before your trip. All right, take care, James. I love you. Yeah. I muttered. Me too. And closed the door firmly behind me. I turned to my computer and finished some paperwork, setting a reminder to call Jennifer the next day for confirmation. Thursday passed much like Wednesday. Julia tried to seduce me that night, wearing a sheer nightgown, but knowing about her affair had stripped away any allure her body once held for me. I'm sorry, Julia, but I feel a migraine coming on, I murmured. I'll rest here in the office tonight. A tear slid down my cheek. She had a tear running down her cheek as she turned away, but I stayed indifferent. The next day, she called me around noon to let me know she was leaving. I hope you're feeling better, Jane, she said. Maybe we can reconnect when I'm back on Monday. Thanks for letting me know, I replied. I love you, James. Sure, she responded. Have a safe trip. Goodbye, Julia, I said after hanging up. I immediately called Jennifer. I'm filing the paperwork now, she informed me. It'll be served at 5:30 tomorrow at Adam's house. Just as you said, Evelyn will be served on Monday. Thanks, Jennifer. I hung up and locked up my office, getting ready for the movers. I gave them a bag with Julia's wedding dress alterations, a note, my wedding ring, and our torn marriage certificate. The bag was to be delivered to Julia at Adam's house at 5:30 the next day. Mr. Collins, the young man assured me, took the bag and said, "Thank you, sir," as he left. I reheated leftover pot roast and ate in the living room watching TV that night. I slept soundly in the master bedroom the next day. Julia's parents arrived with the kids, who I had been preparing for Emma's birthday party in the backyard, which started around 3 p.m. Julia had ordered a cake, which I picked up earlier that morning and stored in the fridge. "You've been busy," remarked Mallory, Julia's mother, as she walked in. "I didn't have much of a choice," I replied. "I hope everything goes smoothly. The kids will have fun," she reassured me. "Did Emma tell you Julia won't be here?" I asked. "Yes," she confirmed. "I can't believe Julia would miss her daughter's birthday," Mallory said. "Is everything all right between you two?" I asked. "Yes," she replied. "Everything's fine. I told the kids, ushering them upstairs to prepare for the party. Before I told Mallory and her husband Max, I said, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but I'm divorcing Julia." Max exclaimed, "Why?" "She's been having an affair with her boss for 12 years. I said, "Am I?" explaining that I'd hired an investigator. I offered to show them the report, but Mallory declined. "I'd like to see that report," Max interjected. "While you're doing that, I'll finish getting things ready for the party." Mahler decided to go along with it, and I thanked her and led Max to my office. As he was handing the report back to me, he said, "Sorry, James. It's just hard to accept." "I understand," I replied. "What about Adam?" Max asked. "I've sued him and—" I trailed off, not wanting to get into the details. I explained that I was suing Evelyn for emotional distress. Max scoffed. After everything Adam had done, he said, he could understand why I was doing it, but he didn't want to risk jail time with 2 kids. I told him Adam needed to pay for what he'd done. I wouldn't let him get into trouble. Max said, "Don't worry." With a grin, I said, "I won't end up in jail." Max was tough, and his plan was his own. "What's the plan?" I asked. "Better you don't know," he replied, clapping my shoulder. "Let's just enjoy the party with the kids outside." Mallory had set up everything for the birthday celebration. Emma was amazed. "Thanks for the decorations, Dad," she said, hugging me. "This is great. I wish Mom could be here to see it." "We'll take pictures so she can see them later," I replied. Okay, she agreed. I fired up the grill and started cooking hamburgers and hot dogs for the kids at 4:30 p.m. The doorbell rang, marking the start of the guests' arrival over the next half hour. Over a dozen parents dropped off their children, all of whom were Emma's school friends. They were having a great time in the backyard. The last to arrive were Evelyn and her husband Ryan with their daughter Denise. I welcomed them inside and directed Denise to the backyard to join the party. I offered Evelyn and Ryan something to drink, which they accepted gratefully. I was surprised to see you here, Evelyn. I thought you and Ryan had a business trip this weekend, which is Adam and Julia's responsibility. She clarified. I'm just there to support them. I see. James, is everything okay? Evelyn inquired, eyeing me cautiously. Between you and Julia. Why do you ask? You're not wearing your wedding ring. I know, I replied, glancing at my finger and noticing the indentation where the ring used to be. Maybe you should wear it again. Adam might have better luck keeping her faithful than I did. What do you mean by that? Evelyn pressed. Let's not play games. Evelyn, I retorted. I know your brother's been involved with Julia for the past 12 years. You two did a great job deceiving me all this time. James, please. Julia still loves you. Evelyn asked, her voice trembling. What do you think I'm doing? I'm divorcing her. She and Adam will be served soon. I checked my watch. I told her. Julia will receive divorce papers, and I'm suing Adam. You'll be served on Monday. I asked her. Why are you suing me? I haven't done anything. Evelyn protested. Exactly. I said in a calm but firm tone that for over a decade, you were aware of their affair. My investigator even suspects that you might have helped them. You pretended to be my friend, sitting in my house enjoying my hospitality, all the while knowing what was going on. Now my marriage is ruined and my children have lost their mother, thanks to the three of you. I'll never be able to love or trust another woman again. James, I'm truly sorry. I said, her voice breaking. Sorry isn't enough, Evelyn. I asserted for 12 years that you three were trying to destroy my family. You didn't care about the impact on me or my kids. Well, now you've succeeded. It wasn't like that, Evelyn. Julia went along with it because she wanted the job, but she wasn't happy about it. Things changed over time, and what about after you sold the company and supposedly retired? I asked. That was Julia's decision. Evelyn clarified. I thought it would end, but she chose. To keep the affair going, she made a bad choice. I said, shaking my head, but you still played your part. I'm sorry, James. She repeated, wiping away a tear. None of us wanted to hurt you, but you did. I added, and in the worst possible way, it's best if you gather your family and leave. I added. Evelyn nodded. I understand. She whispered, walking away to fetch Denise and Ryan and Evelyn. I called after her, but she didn't turn around. She just wiped away another tear and left with her family. Meanwhile, Julia and Adam were lying undressed in his bed when her phone buzzed, signaling a new message. She assumed it was from James. Sending pictures from Emma's party, she reached for her phone on the nightstand. Her face paled as she read the text from Evelyn. He knows everything. Oh no, Julia gasped. What's wrong? Adam inquired, propping himself up on one elbow. That was Evelyn, she replied, her voice trembling. James knows everything. I should get. Julia got up and went to the bathroom to clean up and get ready to go home. She came back out wearing a bathrobe and getting out of bed, and Adam asked her if she was sure that was a good idea. She told him she was moving quickly to get her things together. Just then, the doorbell rang, startling them both. Adam wondered aloud who it could be as he threw on some clothes. Julia followed him downstairs to answer the door. When they opened it, they were greeted by a man dressed in professional attire. "Can I help you?" Adam asked, trying to maintain a casual tone. "Are you Adam Hawkins?" the man asked. "Yes," Adam replied cautiously, and as Julia Collins was also present. The man carried on. "That's me," Julia interjected, stepping forward with wide eyes and visible anxiety. "I'll need to see some ID." "Why?" Adam asked, retrieving his wallet from his back pocket. The man silently examined Adam's driver's license before handing him an envelope. "You've been served," he declared. Giving Adam the documents, he asked Julia for her ID too. She was really nervous and couldn't find her wallet, so she just handed over her license. The man then gave her a separate envelope, saying, "You've been served too, Mrs. Collins." Julia was really shocked and looked really pale when she saw the papers. The door closed slowly behind the process server, who was staring down at the envelope. Her mind was racing. She also noticed that there was a restraining order included with these documents. It said that she and Adam were prohibited from approaching Mr. James Collins, his residence, his workplace, and his children, including their school, within a 500-foot radius. Failure to comply could result in an arrest. The man gave them a curt salute before walking away, leaving Julia and Adam stunned. "Excuse me, is Julia here?" Another man dressed casually inquired. "Yes, that's me," Julia confirmed, her voice barely steady. The man handed her a paper bag with an envelope attached. "I'm here to deliver this to you, ma'am. I've got a few other boxes in the truck. Where would you like them?" Adam and Julia exchanged bewildered glances before Adam replied, "Just leave them in the front room for now, thank you." Later, several boxes were brought in and stacked neatly in the front room as the movers worked. Julia opened the envelope and found a man's wedding ring, a note, and her marriage license torn into 4 pieces. She was in tears as she read the note. "I was shocked to discover your affair with Adam Hawkins over the past 12 years. I thought I could trust you, but it seems I was wrong. I hope you think it was worth it, but I urge you to seek legal counsel promptly. Our finances have been divided for the divorce papers, and I've changed the locks on our doors. I've been the primary caregiver for our children since you started seeing Adam. I'm seeking full custody, but I'm open to visitation arrangements. Please have your attorney contact mine to coordinate. Also, since Adam has offered you shelter, I've sent your belongings to his residence. If there are any items you want to retrieve from our home, please have your attorney arrange it with mine. I don't want to hear from you anymore. Please don't reach out to our children or me. I'll take further action if necessary. Please enforce the restraining order and don't contest the divorce terms. I don't want to make things worse for the kids, but I will if I have to. I have evidence in the form of photos, videos, and a detailed report that shows what you've been up to. I haven't told the kids about why we're getting divorced yet, but I will when the time is right. Your parents know what's going on, but they haven't seen the evidence. Do the right thing and end this marriage. As of now, Julia, you're out of my life. Goodbye, James." Julia opened she found the ashes of her wedding gown, the very dress she had worn when she married James. She collapsed to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. Adam wrapped his arms around her and skimmed through the letter. He muttered, "He's such an idiot. I'll give him a piece of my mind," Adam said. "No, Adam, please don't," Julia begged. "I don't want you to end up in jail. This is my mess to clean up." "What else did you find out?" Adam asked, trying to calm her down. "He's suing me for emotional distress. He's going after Evelyn too. Let's check." After the birthday party wrapped up, I thanked everyone for coming and for the thoughtful gifts. The house was a mess, but I didn't mind. She gave me a hug. "I wish my mum could have been here. I miss her." "Yeah, me too." "Your mum had other plans," Emma said, looking up at me with sad and curious eyes. "Are you divorcing her?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I didn't want to ruin her day, But I knew I couldn't avoid the conversation forever. We'll talk about it later. It's because of that Adam guy, isn't it? Aaron chimed in, standing nearby. What makes you say that? I asked, surprised by his insight. I've overheard my mom talking to him on the phone a few times. He explained it was intriguing, but I decided not to press him further. We'll talk more tomorrow. Emma's birthday today, so I need your help cleaning up. Aaron agreed. I hugged Emma once more and kissed her on the cheek. Everything's going to be okay, I assured her, wiping away her tears. I love you, Daddy, she whispered. I love you too, sweetheart. Mallory and Max stayed behind to help clean up. James, Mallory asked as they were getting ready to leave, are you going to be okay at the party? I'll manage, I replied. Thanks for helping out. If you need anything, just let us know, I added, shaking Max's hand. We're here for you, son, said Max. Once they left, I went upstairs and had a little rest. I was asleep almost instantly. The next day, I woke up early and did my usual Sunday chores. I made breakfast for the kids, and Aaron helped me mow the lawn while I took care of the edges. Once we finished, we tidied up the yard and put the equipment away. Lunchtime, I was pleased to see Emma making sandwiches for us. We sat down together and enjoyed the quiet moment, but I could tell Emma had something on her mind. All right, Dad, she began after we finished eating. You need to tell us what's going on. I had dreaded this conversation, but I knew it was inevitable. I gathered the kids in the living room and sat down with them. I knew this was going to be tough, but I had to be straightforward. I began. I'm divorcing your mother. The news was met with silence from both Emma and Aaron. I had expected some sort of outburst, but they seemed to take it in stride. She's been cheating on you with that Adam guy, hasn't she? Aaron asked, breaking the quiet. Yeah, I admitted quietly. That's right. I figured, Aaron said, nodding. I bet it's been going on for a while, hasn't it? I asked, curious. Just the way she talks to him, Aeon explained. I've overheard her on the phone. She talks to him the same way she talks to you, Dad? It suddenly hit me why I hadn't noticed it myself. The answer was simple. I had trusted her completely. I respected her privacy and had never felt the need to eavesdrop on her conversations. So how long has it been going on, Dad? Emma asked, her voice soft. As far as I can tell, about 12 years. I replied. Emma gasped. That means she started right after I was born. Pretty much. I can confirm that. Emma confirmed it, and I could tell she was annoyed. She apologized and added, Sorry, Dad. I realized what I'd said and I understood her frustration, so I let it slide. It's okay, can we stay with you? Of course, if that's what you want, I told her. Aaron chimed in, You've always been there for us, thank you guys. I was overwhelmed by their support. I'd already requested custody of both of them. They hugged me tightly, and I was really happy to see that my kids still wanted to stay with me after our emotional moment. We spent the rest of the day together trying to move forward despite the sadness that lingered in the air. The following days passed without any major incidents. Mallory and Max continued to pick the kids up after school and stayed with them until I returned from work. I felt guilty for inconveniencing them, but they were really understanding. Mallory was happy to help out too. She even made dinner for us, which was a huge relief. On Tuesday, I got a call from Jennifer. Julia has consulted with her own lawyer and wants to visit the children. I was a bit hesitant. I'm not comfortable having her at the house. What if she tries to take off with them? We could temporarily suspend the restraining order for a designated period. Jennifer suggested maybe from 9. I'll be there at 9 p.m. Friday morning to 9 a.m. On Sunday. I know it's tough, but it's important to come across as reasonable in court. If she visits the kids at her parents' house on Saturday, I suggested I can drop them off there on Friday after school and pick them up either Saturday night or Sunday. I'll bring that up and see what our lawyer says. Jennifer agreed, but Adam and Evelyn shouldn't be there. There's also a chance the kids might not want to see her. They're not exactly happy. I'll also make that clear with her right now, Jennifer said. Is there anything else? Yes, her lawyer wants access to the full PI report. I've sent over a copy. Jennifer said she should receive it by Thursday at the latest, so Julia's retained legal counsel. I confirmed. Yes, she hired Beth Sawyer on Monday. Jennifer said it's surprising since Beth despises cheaters, but she works in the same firm as Adam's lawyer. That's interesting. I'll keep you posted. I'll keep you posted on any developments. Jennifer called me the next day to say that Julia and her lawyer had agreed to my terms. The restraining order would be suspended for 36 hours from midnight Saturday to noon Sunday, and would only apply to Julia, not Adam or Evelyn. Julia would visit the kids at her parents' house, and would not take them anywhere unless they were comfortable with it. I accepted the terms, not wanting to seem unreasonable in front of the court. The kids were a bit unsure at first, but I managed to persuade them to give it a chance. Max and Mallory agreed to pick them up after school on Friday and bring them back on Sunday afternoon. On Friday morning, I made sure the kids had everything they needed for the weekend. I gave them a hug and kiss and dropped them off at school. I told them to contact me if Adam, Evelyn, or their mother tried to approach them. I went to work that evening around 5. Max picked me up and we went to Riverbend Tavern, a local sports bar downtown. We had burgers and beers while watching a wrestling match on the screens. Julia showed up around 9 o'clock this morning. Max told me that it was tense at first, but things eased up eventually. The kids aren't thrilled with her, and they made it pretty clear that's not surprising. I replied, she even came clean about the affair. Max added, that's unexpected. I remarked, raising an eyebrow, she claims she still loves you. Max continued, seems like she might be aiming for reconciliation, but there's no way. I said firmly, after 12 years of deception, it's impossible to see past that. I get it. Max nodded. Did you really burn her wedding dress? That gown cost me over $2,000. When you two got married, it felt appropriate at the time. I admitted with a shrug. She mentioned her lawyer reviewed the PI report and gave her a stern talking to. Max said, taking a sip of his beer, I think she's starting to see your perspective. Suddenly, there was a commotion behind me. Before I could react, something hit my head and I saw stars as I fell. I barely dodged a second blow aimed at me. I'm going to end you, I heard him say. I saw him looming over me and reacted instinctively. Recalling self, I got some good defensive lessons from my father. I kicked Adam in the groin as he advanced, sending him crashing to the floor. Seizing the opportunity, I punched him in the face. It wasn't a calculated attack. There was no finesse. It was raw fury, driven by the desire to hurt the man who had destroyed my marriage and family. I didn't realize that Adam had already lost consciousness. I kept hitting him until 2 pairs of hands pulled me away. The next thing I knew, I was in a hospital bed, being examined by a doctor. My right hand was bandaged and my left arm was in a cast, and I had a headache. The doctor told Max, who was standing nearby, that Adam would be fine, but that he'd have a headache for a while and there was no sign of a concussion. They'd give him some pain meds and let him rest before discharging him. Thank you, Dr. Max, he replied, then turned to me. You'll pull through, although you're hurting. Adam came out worse. He lost a testicle, some teeth, and nearly lost an eye. It was you I saw. You landed a solid punch to his jaw. That was him. I've been here since last night. It's now 8 o'clock. On Sunday morning, Max told me, there are a couple of officers here who want to speak with you. Are you up for that? I might as well get it over with. I'm Sergeant Ruiz, and this is Officer Graham, I replied, wincing. He introduced himself, and we told him about the fight at the River Tavern the night before. How are you feeling? I've been hit upside the head, I said. Sergeant Ruiz smiled briefly. What happened last night? He asked. I don't have much to say, I replied. I was having a burger and beer with my father and I was lawfully at the scene when I was suddenly hit in the head. The guy threatened my life, so I defended myself. Ruiz nodded, confirming that the witness account matched my recollection. The surveillance footage also supported my account. Do you know the sergeant? Yes, Sergeant. His name is Adam Hawkins. I have a lawsuit against him and he's part of my divorce proceedings. Divorce? Yes, I confirmed. Got it. He jotted it down. I assume. You want to press charges? Absolutely. I said there's also a restraining order against him. He understood and said he'd look into it. Mr. Collins, you may be approached for further questioning, so please don't leave town for a while. No problem. Sergeant, I told him. Ruiz smiled slightly before he and Officer Graham left the room. After they'd gone, Mallory, Julia, and the kids came in. Why is she here? Is she here? I asked. I'm Julia. My restraining order doesn't take effect until noon. She explained quietly. I assumed you'd be with your boyfriend. I remarked, not hiding my bitterness. She looked down, embarrassed. I wanted to see you first, she admitted. Besides, Evelyn's with him, and he's still recovering. I nodded and turned to the kids. Emma's eyes were watery. Are you going to be okay, Daddy? She asked softly. I'll be fine, sweetheart. I reassured. I heard you really gave it to Adam last night. Aaron, my son, said with a grin. That's what everyone's saying. It's nothing to brag about. I replied, glancing at Max. You hear me? Got it, Dad, Aeon replied. Julia spoke up. Are you going to be okay? James, be fine. Emma interjected. We'll take care of him, won't we? Aaron affirmed. Julia looked at our teenage children before asking. If you don't. I'd like to have a quick word with your father if you don't mind. They looked at each other before agreeing. Sure, Emma said, but we'll be right outside. She motioned to Aaron, and they left, followed by Max and Mallory. After they were gone, Julia sat down beside me. I'm really sorry about everything, she began. Well, as I told Evelyn last week, sorry doesn't even begin to cover it, I said firmly. You deceived and betrayed me. After 12 years, you think an apology will make everything better? I was a good husband and father, wasn't I? I gave you love and support. You were the best husband and father anyone could ask for. But that wasn't enough, was it? I don't think so. It's not like that, she insisted, her voice faltering. Then help me understand, I urged, leaning forward. She said it was just a way to secure her job. Adam suggested that sleeping with him was a condition for getting the position. I pointed out that this was exploitation. I asked why she didn't come to me first. We could have taken action. I was desperate for that job. She admitted that she thought sleeping with him was a small price to pay, even if it tore apart our family. So, you made a deal with the devil? She laughed and said, I'm not blaming him. I'm blaming myself, she continued. I wanted that job so badly. I thought I could have it all, the job, the family, everything. You developed feelings for him, didn't you? Yes, she replied, looking down at her hands. I didn't plan for it to last this long, but I developed feelings for him. I assumed your love for me would allow me this indulgence. I tried to make sure it didn't affect our. Are you serious? Every moment you spent with him was taken away from us. You know what opportunity cost is. When you chose him, you forfeited us. She nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. You're right. You failed as a wife and a mother. I didn't say that. I just said, your words, not mine. If they resonate with you, maybe they're true. Julia flinched but remained silent. For the record, I continued. I had DNA tests done. The kids are mine. She looked at me horrified. Oh my God, you thought I'd do that to you. You lied to me for 12 years. Julia, I reminded her, you lied to me every day. What did you expect? Tears flowed freely down her cheeks. I guess I deserve that, she murmured. James, you've been seeing other women too. I suspected as much, but I wasn't sure. Her voice was trembling. What now? She asked, looking defeated. Sign the divorce papers, I said. Put an end to this charade of a marriage and get your life together for the kids' sake. Okay, she whispered, nodding. I'll sign the papers. I'm sorry, James, for everything you said. I reminded her that I know she admitted that, but thank you for letting me spend time with the kids this weekend. You're welcome, I said quietly. I know you don't believe me, but I still love you, she insisted. I wish you could find it in your heart to forgive me and give us another chance. You're right. I don't believe you, but I appreciate you saying it. I suppose I'll always care for you, but it's not enough. I need trust in a relationship. After what you've done, I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust anyone again. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. She was crying. I could see that much. She said goodbye to James, then kissed me on the cheek before leaving the room. Max Mallory and the kids came back in after she left. Everything was okay, I told him. I think she finally realizes, the Emma asked, with hope glimmering in her eyes, whether I thought there was a chance of my mum and dad getting back together. I shook my head. Love alone isn't enough to make a marriage work. Trust is just as important. Right now, I don't trust her. Later that night, I got a panicked call from Max James. He told me that Julia Evelyn had been found unconscious at Adam's place. It seemed like she tried to overdose on sleeping pills and alcohol. There was a note on her nightstand that just said, "I'm sorry." She's at the hospital now. I was really worried. Is she going to be okay? I asked, despite everything, because she's stable for now. They got to her in time, but she's going to need help. Mental health professionals are going to evaluate her after she's discharged. She'll be staying with Mallory and me, thank God. I found her in time. I felt a strange mix of relief and guilt. Part of me felt regret for the pain she was going through, but another part of me felt a small sense of vindication. Now maybe she understood a fraction of what I had felt when I learned of her betrayal. Thank God. Max echoed. She's agreed to sign the divorce papers. Jennifer told me. You'll be legally single in about 90 days. That's good to hear, I said quietly. James and Max added their voices. James's was heavy, and they said, "There's more. We're considering admitting Julia to a mental health facility for how long?" I asked, feeling the gravity of the situation intensify. It's challenging to predict, but the doctors believe it could span a few years, perhaps longer. Mallory and I are unable to provide her with round-the-clock care. We've reached our limit. I exhaled. Keep me apprised of her condition and let me know if there's anything we can do to assist. Let me know. Thanks. Max replied, We'll let you know over the next few months. After legal fees, I set aside $1 million for each of the kids' college funds and saved the rest during the summer. I planned a Mediterranean cruise for the kids and me. We needed time away to clear our minds, and the cruise seemed like the perfect way to start fresh. Adam didn't do so well. Video evidence from the pub incident helped convict him of aggravated assault and battery and attempted homicide. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison with eligibility for parole in about 8. I thought he'd serve 5 years, but he ended up serving the full sentence. Julia was released into Max and Mallory's care after her evaluation. She signed up for counseling and tried to understand her actions. She worked hard to rebuild her relationship with the kids, which I was happy about. I didn't want them to lose their mother, even if I couldn't be with her anymore. She also started writing for business blogs and stayed out of the dating scene entirely. Sometimes I'd see Juliet during visits to Max and Mallory's house on WeChat, but I couldn't ignore the hurt that still lingered from what she'd done. She expressed sadness when she found out about the cruise, but she managed to cope and wished us well with the kids. I often sent her updates with photos from our travels during the cruise. I met someone new, Greta, a lovely woman from Alberta. She was younger than Julia with shoulder-length blonde hair and a bubbly demeanor. I enjoyed how she ended her sentences with a signature of her Canadian roots. Greta had 2 kids of a similar age to mine. Spending that summer, we spent time with their grandparents in Idaho. We got to know each other through shared stories from our pasts, and we also shared more than just stories. Emma noticed and teased me about it. She said, "Daddy's got a girlfriend." She nudged me with a grin. At the end of the cruise, we exchanged contact information and promised to keep in touch via email and Skype. I wasn't sure what the future held. We spoke at least twice a week, and I found myself thinking about her more often than I expected. Life without Julia became our new normal. My employer adjusted my schedule so I could handle the school runs. I knew that soon Aaron would be old enough to start driving himself and his sister. On the cruise, Max stopped by with some unfortunate news. They're planning to admit Julia to a mental health facility. He said, his voice was heavy with concern. I felt the familiar weight of worry. What happened? Emma sent her a picture of you three having dinner with that Canadian woman you met on the cruise. Max explained. I don't think Emma. He didn't mean any harm, but Julia didn't take it well. She had a breakdown in Majorca and I found her in the bathtub, having cut her wrists. I felt a surge of shock and guilt. Oh my God, is she all right? Yeah, thankfully she survived, but the doctors say she needs constant care and we're not able to provide that anymore. That's why they're recommending institutionalization. I asked how long she'd be in care. It could be a few years or it could be indefinite. Max said we just don't know. I nodded, absorbing the information. I'll let you know if there's anything we can do to help. Thanks, James. Max patted my shoulder and said he'd keep me updated. As time passed, Greta and I continued our long-distance relationship. As our conversations continued, our bond grew stronger. I found myself thinking about her more and more, even daydreaming about the life we might have together. She expressed sympathy about Julia's situation, primarily for the sake of the kids and for Max and Mallory. During one of our last conversations, Greta suggested visiting us with her kids or inviting us to her home. Story Log House is set on 50 acres of woodland just north of Edmonton, Canada. I'd never been that far north before, but the idea was intriguing. Who knows what the future holds? That's a story for another time.